Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everybody to Captera's Professional Staffing. I'm Jose Ricardo Ochoa Guerrero, and today we're going to present you the effective electrical safety, key consideration for selection, application, and care of PPE or personal protective equipment. Si necesitas esta información en español, vea la descripción de este video o a nuestro canal de YouTube. The objectives. Provide information to help you with your electrical personal protective equipment PPE program. Note, this presentation is not an electrical safety training course. This brief presentation is designed to help develop awareness of elements of an electrical safety program, PPE, or personal protective equipment. The agenda. Today, we will provide an introduction to electrical hazard. Other hazards are present when performing an electrical work, but will not be discussed. Review select OSHA requirements, electrical. Review a few elements of NFPA 70E standard for electrical safety in the workplace related to electrical PPE. Some electrical hazards are electrical shock, arc flash, arc blast, thermal burn, among others. Electrical hazard fatality rates. According to the Bureau of Labor, contact with electricity is the 7th leading cause of the top of the patient fatalities from 2003 to 2010. As you can see in the graphic of electrical fatalities rates by events from 2003 to 2010, the fear causes is the overhead lines, wiring transformer of effect components, the machine, the tools, and the appliance of light fixture. Electrical hazard, private industry, not fatal injuries. As you can see in the screen, you see the misuse of electricity. Now, I ask you, how many times have you been shocked? And you can see in the graphic that not fatal electrical injuries, private industry by nature of injury is the construction by 2003 to 2010. Electrical hazard. Below, we will show you photos of electrical arc accident. As we know, the electrical arc is a huge danger for workers. You can recognize this image in real life? Hopefully not. Well, these are actually bad results. Now, I want to share with you some videos of this kind of accidents. Arc flash and arc blast. Arcing faults release dangerous levels of radiant heat energy, capable of causing severe burns or fatal injuries. Can produce clouding ignition, melting can occur. Arc blast, the vaporization of metal and heating of the air produce blast pressure waves up to 2000 psi, which can cause severe injuries. Arc flash and arc blast. The explosion distributes the molten metal produced by the arc over a large area. Other potential injuries can be hearing loss, lung damage, damage to eyesight, physical injuries. By a note, PPE helps provide protection against burn injury but does not address blast injury. The rule NFPA 70E. It's an electrical safety program. Calls for the employer to implement and document an overall electrical safety program. Must be appropriate to the risks associated with electrical hazard. Some of electrical hazard can be shock hazard, arc flash hazard, burn hazard, among others. Electrical safety program. Every workplace must have an electrical safety program. This program must be written with OSHA requirements and elements of NFPA 70E. Electrical safety in the workplace, safety tailored to your work. Some examples are lockout, tagout, job hazard analysis, risk assessment, work practice and procedure, job planning, and training requirements. Do you see something wrong with this picture? Of course. This person is not using his personal protective equipment. The personal security program will help you with selection, training, application, maintenance, limitation, demonstrated knowledge, and more. Have you heard about OSHA? Well, OSHA regulations were developed to mandate that employers provide a safe workplace for their employees. Selection of standard CFR Part 9010 and 9026 promote the safety of employees working without electrical equipment and clearly define employers' responsibilities. As a note, individual states may have their own program, which may modify federal OSHA requirements. If you want to know more about OSHA, you can visit the official website, www.osha.com. The federal and local OSHA regulation needs to be considered for an electrical safety program and safe work practice. OSHA 1910, subpart I, talk about the personal protective equipment, and OSHA 1910, subpart S, talk about utilization electrical. The federal and the local OSHA regulation, where applicable, needs to be considered for an electrical safety program and safe work practice. The OSHA 1910 subpart R talk about the special industries, and the OSHA 1926 subpart K talk about the safety and health for construction electrical. The appendix to part 1910 subpart S reference NFPI 70E as providing information that can be helpful in understanding and complying with the requirements contained in subpart S. Now we are going to talk more about electrical safety and arc flash hazard. NFPI 70E, a standard for electrical safety in the workplace. The more important chapters are working involving electrical hazard, safety-related maintenance requirements, safety requirements for special equipment. This annex also includes reference publication and helpful information, including examples, procedures, and documents, forms, calculation methods, lockout, checkout, overhead lines policies, and more. We continue with the Electrical Safety Program 110.1. Talks about risk assessment, address employee exposure to electrical hazard, and help to identify the process to be used by the employer before work is started to identify hazard, assess risk, and implement risk control according to the hierarchy of methods. And the key point of the electrical safety program is to eliminate or reduce the risk of the accident in the workplace. Some examples of risk assessment job hazard analysis can be arc flash, shock, thermal burns, radiant, amongst others. As you can see in this picture, the red arrow is an exposure, so they need to be careful about the voltage. And you can see in the left picture, there is another exposure, so they need to be careful about the tools they use. The risk assessment, as you can see here, is a worksheet. I would highly recommend it that you got to make sure you open up your copy and open up the informative annex of NFPI. Take a look to the risk assessment process. Remember, the risk assessment is a very personalized process based in the workplace. The hierarchy of health and safety. Have you performed risk assessment? The elimination. Designed to eliminate hazard. As example, arc-resistant switchgear. Designs allowing for lockout, tagout. External metering, infrared ports. Substitution. Substitution of less hazard installation. As example, external disconnects, current limiting over current devices, remedial switching, and lockout. Engineering controls. Example, interlocks, finger-safe design, maintenance mode switching. Warning, as example, signs, entry alarms, administrative controls, as example, procedures controls, safe jobs, tax procedures, stop work policy, job hazard risk analysis and mitigation, personal protective equipment, PPE, as examples, properly rated rubber insulation gloves, arc rating clothing and face shields, arc rating rainwear, outdoor wear. The reducing exposure and risk. A few options available could be external test port. This device reducing the exposure and risk for test voltage. Then we have the load rated pin and slip connectors in case someone did disconnect it under load. Then the external infrared ports, and finally the remote lockout device. The training requirements. Employee training and qualified person shall be trained and knowledgeable in the construction and operation of equipment or a specific work method, and shall be trained to identify and avoid electrical hazard that might be present with respect to equipment or work method. Also must be familiar with proper use of the specific precautionary techniques, applicable policies and procedures, personal protective equipment, PPE, hazard, arc flash, arc blast, thermal burns, shock, insulation and shielding materials, insulating tools, and test equipment. As a note, the person also requires demonstrate skills and knowledge. Approach boundaries to energize electrical conductors. Part for shock protection. Shock risk assessment shall be determined. Voltage to personnel will be exposed. Boundary requirements. PPE necessary to minimize possibility of electrical shock. As you can see in the image, risk assessment has to help us determine will voltage the personnel could be exposed. An arc flash risk assessment should be performed as arc flash boundary when an arc flash hazard exists. An approach limit at a distance from prospective arc source within which a person could receive a second-degree burn if an electrical arc flash were to occur. Generally, you will see this when we exceed 1.2 cal. Anyone within this area must wear appropriate PPE or personal protective equipment. Protective device clearing time, short-circuit current, etc. can impact the boundary. We are going to talk about two methods, arc flash risk assessment and arc flash PPE. One of the following methods shall be used for selection of PPE. Either, but not both methods shall be permitted for a selection of PPE on the same piece of equipment. Incident energy analysis method, like example calculation, is the preferred method. Here we're going to talk about the short-circuit coordination and arc flash analysis. We need to develop a game plan for the study approach. Some consideration includes reducing energy levels, multiply system configurations, and identify underrated equipments. Without all this, we are trying to break the energy down. We really need to take care of the results of the calculation and formulas for optimal results. The PPE selection, when incident energy analysis conducted, based on Article 130. Incident energy exposure equal or greater than 12 cal. Arc-rated clothing and equipment with an arc rate equal to or greater than the incident energy determined in a hazard analysis. The protective clothing and PPE are arc-rated long sleeve shirt, an arc-rated pants, or arc-rated coverall, or arc flash suit. Then we have the arc-rated face shield, an arc-rated balaclava, or arc flash suit hood. And finally, we have the arc-rated jacket, parka, or rainwear. As another PPE in the same level of energy exposure, you can use as a plus hard hat, electrical radar, arc radar, hard hat, liner, safe glasses or goggles, hearing protection, heavy-duty leather gloves or rubber insulating gloves with leather protectors, and leather footwear. The arc flash risk assessment. The arc flash PPE. One of the following methods shall be used for selection of PPE or the arc flash PPE categories. This method requires of table 130. Shall apply when PPE category method equipment is used for selection of PPE. PPE categories method depending on the type of task that we are doing of work location, and of course, there are certain limitations to using these tables applied, like short-circuit currents and clearing times, etc. Now we're going to talk about the direct current DC systems. Task. Examples from table are the perform infrared thermography and other non-contact inspection outside restricted approach boundary. These activities does not include opening of doors or covers, as equipment condition can be any, and the arc flash PPE is not required. Then, the wear of control circuit with exposed energy electrical conductors and circuit parts greater than 120 volts can be the equipment any, and the arc flash PPE is required. The insertion of removal break-in of CBs or starters from cubicles, doors open or closed, the equipment condition can be any, and the arc flash is required. The insertion or removal of plug-in devices into or from busways can be any, the equipment, and the arc flash is required. Finally, work on exposed energies electrical conductors and circuit parts of equipment directly supplies by panel board or motor control center. This equipment can be any, and the arc flash PPE is required. Now we can see that in examples for arc flash hazard PPE categories for alternative current systems, the equipment for panel boards or other equipment rated at 240 volts and below, the flash PPE category is the first, and the arc flash boundary is the distance of 485 millimeters and 19 inches. Then the panel boards or other equipment rated than 240 volts and below, the arc flash category of PPE are the second, and the arc flash boundary distance is 900 millimeters. With 600 volts class motors control center, MCCS, the arc flash category is the second. And finally, with 600 volts class motors control center, MCCS, the arc flash PPE category is the fourth, and the arc flash boundary is the distance of 1.5 meters and 5 feet. And now we're gonna see the NFPA 70E. With the PPE category, the first, for example, protective clothing of PPE are the arc rating clothing, minimum arc rating of 4 cal. The arc rating long sleeve shirt and pants or arc rating coverall. The arc rating face shield or arc flash hood. And the arc rating jacket, parka, rainwear or hard hat liner. For the protective equipment, we have the hard hat, the safety glasses for safety goggles, the heavy-duty leather gloves, and the leather footwear. For the second PPE category, as an example for protective clothing, we have the arc rating clothing, minimum arc rating of 8 cal, as the arc rating long sleeve shirt and pants of arc rating coverall. Then the arc rating flash hood or the arc rating face shield, and arc rated balaclava. Finally, we have the arc rated jacket, parka, rainwear, or hard hat liner. For protective equipment, we have the hard hat, the safety glasses for safety goggles, the hearing protection, the heavy-duty leather gloves, and finally, the leather footwear. Now we are going to talk about the section 1910.269. For I-8, this one talks about the protection from flames and electrical arcs. Then I-8I talks about the employer shall assess the workplace to identify employees exposed to hazard from flames or from electrical arcs. And finally, we have the I-8II that talks about for each employee exposed to hazards from electrical arcs, the employee shall make a reasonable estimate of the incident heat energy to which the employee will be exposed. Electrical PPE or personal protective equipment. Recommendation: limit your PPE to 2 or 3 groups. For example, where limit frequency of exposure, consider wearing all natural fiber clothing with other appropriate PPE. We need to choose our PPE depending on the risk level. As you can see in the third picture, we have an example of PPE level 2. This one is up to 8, 10, or 12 cal. And the second picture is an example of the level 4. As you can see, this person is full cover. The normative NFPA 70E, the section 130.7C talks about the personal protective equipment. In the section 12, we talks about the clothing and other apparel not permitted. You need to know the materials that does not meet the requirements of this section because some of these are flammable or could melt. As exception, clothing made from not melting flammable materials like cotton, wool, rayon, or silk shall be permitted for underlayers for arc-rated clothing. As a note, non-arc rating cotton, polyester cotton blends, silk rayon, and wool fabrics are flammable. These fabrics could ignite and continue to burn on the body, resulting in serious burn injuries. Let's talk about undergarments. We have to avoid meltable fibers such as acetate, nylon, polyester, polypropylene, and spandex. Shall not be permitted in fabric underlayers, underwear next to the skin. As an instructor note, we have the additional protection against possible injuries can be provided by complete arc rating clothing system, which may include arc rating undergarments. And another note for women, ladies' undergarments are available in arc rate fabric. Now, in this picture, we have an example of the PPE daily wear. The reference is NFPA 70E, section 130.7C. We have the hearing protection, sock hood with arc rating shield or alternative arc flash hood, the body protection, arc rating shirt, pants of coverall, the arc rating of non-melted undergarments, the foot and leg protection, leather footwear. As a note, suggests shoes, the electric overshoes were required for shock protection, the arc rating heat face, neck, and chin protection. Electrical rating hard hat. Hair, bear, knits, and hat liners also need to be arc rated when used. Then we have the eye protection, arc energy rated face shield, plus ANSI C80, safety glasses. The hands and arm protection, shock and flash, and finally the arc rating outer garments. We continue with the level 3 and 4. It refers to the arc flash suit of the NFPA 70E, also section 130.7. As you can see, it's a full cover suit with fresh air system, cooling vest, arc rating hood with energy rating lens, safety glasses, hearing protection, arc rating body protection, hand and arm protection, arc rating on non-melting undergarments, and finally, foot and leg protection. As a note, garment worn should meet ASTM F1891 for electric arc, should not melt or break open. It also should minimize heat transfer burn, and it must suggest high visibility rating. Now we are going to talk about PPE selection considerations for clothing, hoods, and shields. For clothing, this should meet the ASTM F1506 garment and F1959 fabric. It has to be label and track. The clothing must not have metallic zippers. It's better rated Velcro. Clothing needs to be made with arc rating thread, arc rating cuffs, and must have proper label. Hoods and shields. These must be tested and compliant with ASTM F2178 and ANSI C87.1. It should be properly labeled, and finally suggest fan for hood. Garments should meet reference OSHA and NFPA 70E standards. The incident energy increase as working distance decrease. For example, 4.9 cal at 18 inches will result in an approximate energy level of 15 to 20 cal exposure at 9 inches. If you were wearing an 8 cal garment and your arm was within 9 inches of the potential air source, could this result in a potential burn? We can see that in the right image, there is a reference of the level and some consideration. For protecting device clearing time, the proper maintenance is essential for proper protective device clearing time. For slower protecting device clearing time and greatly impact incident energy levels. And for changing system after a study can greatly impact incident energy exposure. This image talks about the circuits and some consideration of transformers. Continue with the selection consideration. A study have indicates an electrical switchgear bus orientation can impact incident energy values deposited on PPE versus calculate value from IEEE 1544. Arc rating is the value attribute to material that describe their performance to exposure to an electrical arc discharge. The arc rating is expressed in cal and is derived from the determinate value of the arc thermal performance value, or ATPV, or energy of break-open threshold, or EVT, should a material system exhibit a break-open response below the ATPV value. Finally, arc rating is reported as either ATPV or AVT, whichever is the lower value. ATPV is defined in ASTM F1959 1959M standard test method for determining the arc rating of materials for clothing as the incident energy cal on a material or a multi-layer system of materials that result in a 50% probability that sufficient heat transfer through the tested specimen is predicted to cause the onset of a second-degree skin burn injury based on the Stoll curve. In the image, we can see the graphic that represents a skin burn injury. The reference of EVT, or energy of break-open threshold, is defined in ASTM F1959 F1959M, a standard test method for determining the arc rating of materials for clothing as the incident energy cal or a material system that result in a 50% probability of break-open. In the NFPA 70E, arc flash risk assessment equipment labeling should be filled marked with all the following, like nominal system voltage, arc flash boundary. Labeling should contain at least one of these following. As an example, available incident energy and corresponding working distance. The arc flash PPE category in a table 130.7c or table for equipment. Minimum arc rating of clothing and site-specific level of PPE. Electrical PPE. In the PPE level C for incident energy exposure more than level B, not to exceed 40 cal of exposure. User to select maximum exposure value. Arc rating clothing, minimum arc rating of 40 cal. Arc rating coat bibs or coverall. Arc rating flash suit hood. Arc rating jacket, parka or rainwear. Arc rated hard hat liner. Arc rating gloves. For protected equipment, voltage rating hard hat, safety glasses or goggles, heavy-duty leather gloves, rubber insulation gloves with leather protection, and finally leather work shoes. For PPE level B, not to exceed 8, 10, or 12 cal of exposure. User select. Arc rating clothing, minimum arc rating of 8, 10, or 12 cal. Arc rating long sleeve shirt and pants or arc rating coverall. Arc rating face shield with arc rating balaclava or arc flash suit hood. Arc rating jacket, parka, or rainwear. For protecting equipment, voltage rating hard hat, safety glasses or goggles, hearing protection, heavy-duty leather gloves, shock hazard may require rubber insulation gloves, and finally, leather work shoes. The PPE for battery service, a few consideration includes shock protection, arc flash protection, and finally, chemical rating where applicable. The PPE fabric consideration, treated fabric, as an example, treating cotton. Chemicals added to the fiber of chemicals treatments applied to the fabric. Let's discuss some points. Advantage, possible reduced initial investment. Disadvantage, possible higher lifetime cost. Disadvantage, improper laundering can degrade product. Disadvantage, trace formaldehyde may cause reaction. Disadvantage, may not react as favorable during after arc. And finally, 1. FR fabric manufacturer indicates their product is good for the life of the garment. What is the life of the garment? Types of arc rating fabrics. Inherently arc rating fiber. Some examples: DuPont, Nomex, Kevlar, and Protera, and Kermel, TekaSafe, and Glenward. Arc rating properties are inherent in fiber that is used in manufacturing product. Advantage: molecular structure of fiber does not support combustion. Parameters have an endothermic reaction when hit with an arc flash. The product absorbs the energy and extinguishes the minimal after flame. Advantage: flame resistance is not degraded by laundering. Advantage: possible lower cost of ownership over time due to longer garment life. Disadvantage: possible higher initial investment. PPE, care and maintenance. Arc rating clothing and suits. Arc rating apparel should be inspected before each use. Arc rated apparel should be inspected before each use. Do not use if damaged or contaminate to the point of impairing protection. As an example, greasy or flammable liquids. Follow manufacturer instruction for cleaning and care. As a note, failure to follow this requirement could result in a loss of protection. Store in such a manner that prevents damage, degradation, and contamination. Perform repair with same arc rating material. As you can see in the picture, here we have an arc rated suit that is already damaged, and we must not use it again. We are now at the end of the presentation, and I'm going to share with you the summary. PPE is your last line of defense, but the first line is to prevent. Take some time to develop and document an electrical PPE program. Make sure personnel are properly trained. Understand the limitation of PPE. Always perform job hazard analysis and risk assessment, and make PPE determination based on educated decisions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your attention and time. My name is Ricardo Ochoa, and I'm a mechatronic engineer. If you have any question, please share in the comments below of this video.